My name is Alina Chambers, and I used to believe that dignity was something you could maintain if you just worked hard enough, spoke carefully, and stayed out of people's way. That was before someone decided I didn't matter, not even enough to ask before taking what was mine. I'm 34, born and raised in Corvallis, but I've lived in Portland for over a decade now. It's not a bad place to disappear into: gray skies, steady rain, forests that lean over you like secrets. I work in an architectural firm near the Pearl District, one of those modern offices with too much glass and not enough soul. I'm a senior designer, which sounds impressive until you realize it just means I bleed for projects that get gutted in meetings by people who don't even know which way a load-bearing wall runs. Still, I like clean lines. I like quiet mornings. I take my coffee in the break room around 7:40 before the herd stumbles in. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and my Hawaii mug. It's bright blue, with a volcano painted in curling strokes, the steam rising like breath. I bought it years ago during a solo trip to the Big Island, right after my divorce. It was the first time I'd done something for myself without apologizing for it. I keep to myself, always have. Coworkers smile, nod, let me be. I'm not the one who gets invited to happy hours or weekend hikes. That used to bother me. Now I think I prefer it this way. Safe, simple, predictable, or at least it was. Until Mark. Mark Denshaw is the kind of man you hope your daughter never brings home. Sharp smile, expensive shoes, the type who tosses out compliments like pennies and expects you to polish them like gold. He joined the firm 6 months ago as our new operations manager and walked in like he already owned the place. He's younger than me by about 4 years and reminds everyone of it. He calls me Ellie, even though I've corrected him more times than I can count. It started small. Petty, really. My Hawaii mug went missing one day. I found it in the sink with someone else's coffee stains clouding the rim. I rinsed it and let it go, then it happened again. And again. One morning, I walked in early and saw him standing by the coffee maker, sipping from it like it belonged to him. He arched a brow when he noticed me. "Morning, Ellie," he said, lifting the mug in a toast. "This thing's got a good lip feel," I blinked. "That's mine." He shrugged and didn't move. "It's just a mug." "No," I said, stepping closer. "It's my asterisk mug, from a trip I took. It's got my name carved on the bottom." He had the nerve to glance underneath, then smirk. "Huh, didn't notice. Guess it's got community value now." It hit me then, not the theft, but the dismissal. The casualness asterisk. Like I was a background prop in his little office sitcom. I stood there, mug clenched in my hand after he handed it over, still warm from his mouth. The smell of his cologne lingered longer than it had any right to. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the rain ping off the roof, my hands curled into fists beneath the covers. I tried telling myself it didn't matter, it asterisk shouldn't matter, but it did, because it wasn't about the mug. It was about being erased. About someone reaching across the unspoken line of decency and saying, "You don't get to have this either." No apology, no shame, just that smirk. The next morning, I scrubbed the mug until my fingers went raw. I put it back in the break room, just like always, and waited. By 10, it was gone. That's when something in me quietly snapped. I stared at the empty shelf and I saw it, what I had allowed to happen for years. The sidelines I clung to. The deference I wrapped around myself like armor, thinking it made me invisible and therefore safe. But safety without self-respect isn't safety at all. It's rot disguised as stability. No more, he didn't just borrow my mug. He took a part of me I had carved out from pain and made mine again. He spat on it with a smile. And now he's going to learn who I am when I stop being polite. Let him laugh. Let him smirk. He won't be smiling when I'm done. By Monday morning, the mug sat on my desk like a loaded gun. The blue glaze shimmered under flickering fluorescent lights, the volcano etched across its belly as proud and defiant as I wished I could be. The smell, faint now, still lived beneath the ceramic lip, not enough to make you gag, just enough to make your stomach lurch if you got too close. A perfect reminder. Mark didn't touch it that day. Not when he passed my desk, not when he poured his usual burnt coffee into a crinkled paper cup. He glanced at it though. A twitch of recognition passed over his face, narrowed eyes, a brief tightening of his jaw. I met his gaze just long enough to let him wonder. For about 48 hours, I thought I'd won. By Wednesday, the tide turned. "Hey, Jules," Claire whispered, poking her head around my cubicle like a nervous mouse. "You should know Mark went to HR." I blinked. "For? What?" She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped inside, lowering her voice. "He said someone s been sabotaging him. That someone s been adding stuff to his food." My spine turned to ice. "He can't prove anything." "No, but he says he got sick. Told them the mug he used smelled like animal waste. He's making a big deal about it, but it's not even his mug, I said. He kept stealing it, it's mine. Claire's eyes widened slightly. You told HR that, right? I know, I didn't think I had to. She winced. You might want to there? Concerned, so I went. The HR office looked too cheerful for the gravity of my anxiety. Soft lighting, fake plants, and a sign that read "Let's build better workplaces together." Linda, the HR manager, gestured for me to sit. Julian, she said, folding her hands, is there something going on between you and Mark Bennett? I hesitated. I've had a mug in the break room, I said slowly, watching her expression. From a trip to Hawaii. He kept taking it even though it had my name on it. I asked him to stop. She nodded, expression unreadable. And did you do anything to the mug? I paused. My fingers curled against the armrest. No, I said quietly. She watched me for a beat too long. We don't tolerate workplace harassment, intentional contamination of personal items, or any actions that could be construed as retaliatory or unsafe. Mark has filed a formal complaint. He's asked for an internal review. It hit like a punch to the chest. I didn't mean for, there's no proof I did anything. No, there isn't, she said, but rumor moves fast. I'd recommend you keep everything professional moving forward. No further interactions unless strictly necessary. Understood, I nodded, throat tight. By Friday, the mood in the office shifted. People didn't stop talking when I walked by, but they didn't smile as much either. Some watched me from behind their screens. Claire avoided my desk. Even Sarah, who always brought me a slice of banana bread when she baked, hadn't said good morning. Mark, of course, basked in it. He walked taller. Wore a smug expression that made my stomach coil. He even accidentally left a passive-aggressive post-it on the bulletin board in the break room, respect shared spaces. We're all adults here, don't be gross. That night I cried in my car. The parking lot sat empty except for a few flickering lampposts and the engine's fading heat under my palms. My breath fogged the windshield in short, shallow bursts. I wasn't a bad person. I just wanted him to stop taking something that was mine. But now I was the villain. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel, feeling the cool leather press against my skin. It grounded me, barely. My heartbeat thudded louder than it should have. I tried not to let the tears come, but they did anyway. Slow and hot and bitter. You always say it's just a mug, I whispered. Why does it mean so much to you? Why did it mean so much to me? Because it was mine. Because when I drank from it, I remembered getting lost on the big island in a rented Jeep with the windows down and my hair whipping in the wind. I remembered the old man who sold me the mug wrapped in newspaper and told me, take a piece of the volcano home with you. Because for once, something expensive and beautiful and fragile had survived the chaos of my life and made it back with me. Because after my divorce, when every coffee tasted bitter, that mug gave me 12 ounces of control. I wiped my eyes, straightened up, and decided I wasn't done. Not yet. The next morning, I arrived before dawn. I took a picture of the mug, close, clear, with my full name and the date underneath. Then I printed the image and taped it on the cabinet above the break room sink with a label. This mug belongs to Julian Roth. Please do not use. I added a smiley face, polite, non-confrontational, civilized. By lunchtime, it had been peeled off. Claire wouldn't even meet my eyes anymore. Mark passed by my desk, holding a new ceramic mug with bold gold lettering, best team player. He tapped the rim and smiled. Some of us lead by example, Jules. I stood up, my chair scraping loud behind me. You're a thief and a liar, Mark. He leaned in slightly, close enough for only me to hear. And you're one complaint away from an unpaid leave. I stared at him, heart hammering. Why do you want to ruin me? I asked, voice low. He shrugged. I don't. You just make it so easy. Then he walked off like he hadn't just twisted something inside me and left me bleeding. That night, I sat on my couch with the mug cradled in my palms. I ran my thumb along its smooth curve. My apartment felt too quiet, too empty. The silence buzzed. I didn't eat. I didn't answer texts. I just sat there thinking about how I'd let a smug little tyrant with a company badge push me into a corner. About how people like him always got promoted, always smiled in meetings, always knew how to twist the knife just right. I felt small, contaminated in ways no mug ever could be. I closed my eyes. He's winning. He's really winning. And I'm not sure I can stop him. Something in me cracked just a little. The next week, I kept my head down. I wore neutral colors, spoke only when spoken to, and kept my mug locked in my desk drawer like it was radioactive. The silence hardened around me until it became armor. I thought I could outlast him. That maybe he'd grow bored. But Friday came with a memo. The email subject line hit like a bullet. Internal review outcome. I opened it. Following recent concerns regarding inappropriate behavior in the shared spaces, effective immediately, Julian Roth will transition to a remote work arrangement. This adjustment will allow the team to maintain a harmonious in-office environment while ensuring all parties feel respected and safe. I stopped reading. My body went cold. They took me out, not Mark, not the man who crossed boundaries and smiled while doing it. Me. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. It wasn't just about a mug anymore. He'd taken my credibility, my space, my voice, and the worst part, no one fought for me. That night, as I packed my things, the volcano stared at me from the corner of the desk. So bright, so stupidly cheerful, I held it in my hands one last time. I had never felt so defeated. It was quiet. Too damn quiet. The kind of bone-deep silence that only shows up after the damage is done. I sat alone in my car, engine off, windows fogged. The parking lot lights bled through the mist like dull stars, and the mug, my stupid, blue, volcano-patterned Hawaii mug, sat on the passenger seat, dry and clean, perfectly harmless. It had started as a joke, a petty little tilt of the scales. Mark thought he could take what wasn't his, so I gave it to him gift-wrapped in shame. And it worked for a while. But now I felt hollow, not triumphant, not satisfied, just drained. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and whispered into the dark, "What the hell am I even doing?" There had been whispers about me lately, too. Not many, not loud, but enough to sting. People noticed the shift in the air, even if they didn't know I caused it. Jenna from HR kept looking at me sideways. Jonah moved his lunch to the other break room. Every time I walked in, smiling, trying to act like nothing happened, it felt like dragging guilt on my back. This wasn't about a mug anymore. Hell, maybe it never really was. It's just a mug. Mark's words echoed again, smug and careless, like someone flipping a match toward dry grass. But it wasn't just about the mug. It was about respect, boundaries, that thin line between what's yours and what someone else decides they can take. And now the line was blurred. I tried to fix it by sinking lower than him. What did that say about me? A breath rattled out of my chest. I remembered my dad once telling me, revenge is the easy part. Living with it's the trick. I never understood what he meant until now. I'd become the kind of person who used deception, who twisted someone's moment of arrogance into public humiliation. I'd earned the silence at lunch, the glances, the way people now kept their distance like I might strike again. And Mark, he hadn't said a word to me since that morning he gagged at his desk, face pale, mug clattering into the sink like a death knell. No confrontation. No apology. Just an awkward tension, thick as tar. Still, the silence felt wrong, unearned, like the story had cracked right down the middle, but no one had the guts to say what they saw. I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. "Is this who you turned into, Casey?" I didn't answer, but everything in me knew the truth. This was never about revenge. Not really. It was about being seen, heard, understood. Something Mark denied me every time he smirked and sipped from that mug like it was his birthright. But now I saw a different way. It came by accident. That afternoon, while going through old reports in the records room, I found something, a proposal from last year, a sustainability initiative that never made it past Mark's desk. I'd written it, pitched it months ago, and he'd told me it didn't fit the company's direction, but here it was again. Only now the digital file had a new author. His name, my work. Heat crawled up my chest. I double-checked the metadata. Dates. Edits. Everything. That smug bastard hadn't just stolen my mug. He'd stolen my ideas. I leaned back against the metal cabinet, fingers trembling, heart thudding so loud I could hear it in my ears. This was the real theft, the real rot, and suddenly everything clicked. Mark never saw people. Not really. He saw props, tools, background noise, and the grand performance of Mark the Great. He didn't care about mugs or proposals, he cared about control. The quiet kind. The kind that sinks into the floorboards and poisons you from below. He'd been feeding off my work, my patience, my silence. Well, no more. For the first time in weeks, I felt still. Not hollow, not raging, just centered. This wouldn't be about revenge anymore. This would be about truth. I spent the next few days differently. Calm, focused. I stopped waiting for Mark to slip. Instead, I started watching, studying. Every corner cut, every offhand jab, every idea he discovered. I collected everything, carefully, silently. On Wednesday, I stayed late, my desk lamp casting a soft glow over the new proposal I'd written, my proposal. I printed it, bound it neatly, then slid it into an envelope addressed to the executive director. But I didn't stop there. I included the timestamped files, the emails, my original drafts, and a note, short, clear. I don't want credit, I just want the truth to matter. I sealed it, heart still and steady. That night I didn't sleep, but I didn't need to. The next morning I walked into the office with a purpose I hadn't known in months. Not vindictive, not vengeful, just clean. Mark saw me from across the room. He looked away first. I smiled just barely. No fear, no turning back. Tomorrow the truth would speak for itself. Act 3, I came in early Monday morning, well before sunrise draped its light across the frozen foothills outside our office building. The air still clung to the sharp bite of high-altitude winter, and I could see my breath curl in little ghosts as I unlocked the side door. My fingers, half numb from the walk-in, grazed the handle of the mug now infamous in our department. The bright blue souvenir from Maui, the rim still slightly warped from whatever science experiment Mark had unwittingly endured. I'd scrubbed it clean since, of course, but I hadn't forgotten. More importantly, I knew Mark hadn't either. By now, the tension between us was as obvious as snow on the mountains. Unspoken but thick in the air. People didn't ask what happened. They just avoided sitting too close to him, or stared a little too long when he walked into a room. But I wasn't done, not yet. His smugness had taken more than just my mug. It had eaten away at the smallest comforts of my work life until I caught myself dreading lunch breaks, sidestepping conversations, shrinking back into silence. That wasn't me. Not anymore. I had spent 3 weeks collecting data, screenshots, copies of emails, timestamps. Mark had a little habit of taking credit for collaborative projects. Nothing overt, nothing in writing, but enough offhand comments in meetings, enough I just threw something together remarks to upper management that eventually his name rose while others faded into the wallpaper. Not this time. Our quarterly presentation to the board loomed, and Mark, of course, had positioned himself front and center. He emailed our director claiming he had a direction for the pitch and offered to helm it alone. I let him have it. I stepped back just far enough to watch the fall. But behind the scenes, I scheduled a private meeting with Ms. Voss, the regional VP, a no-nonsense woman with glacier blue eyes and a memory sharper than broken glass. I'm not here to complain, I'd told her, laying down the file. Just thought you want to see who's really been driving these numbers. Her eyes danced across the documents. I watched her jaw harden ever so slightly. Is that his name on the original pitch template? She asked. No, ma'am. You realize if this is true, he's been misrepresenting intellectual contributions? Yes, I said, voice calm, and no one's called him on it. Until now, so Monday came. Mark stood tall at the head of the sleek glass conference table, sleeves rolled up, tan skin glowing like he'd spent the weekend skiing instead of scrambling for a pitch he didn't fully understand. I watched his eyes scan the room, confident, relaxed, until he met mine. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. He opened with bravado, throwing out buzzwords like glitter, innovation, agility, cross-departmental synergy. All dressed up, nothing underneath. Then he pulled up the first slide and stopped speaking, because it wasn't his, it was mine, and the second slide, and the third. Every visual, every metric, every forecast, I had built them. Attached at the bottom corner of each slide, as I'd requested, was the name of the creator. In plain font, Zoe Pike. His face went pale. Steely quiet filled the room, like the collective breath of 8 executives waiting to see if the man would drown or swim. Ms. Voss leaned forward. Mark, she said with a tilt of her head, why are all these authored by Zoe? He fumbled. We worked together. I meant to credit her. You forwarded a separate pitch deck last week, with your name on it. That was just stop. Her voice dropped like cold water across a fevered head. You're done. Silence cracked like thunder. Mark turned to me as if searching for some rope to pull himself out by. His pride collapsed behind his eyes. You set me up, he whispered, barely audible. Accusation and disbelief tangled in his breath. No, I said softly but with fire. You set yourself up. I just let the truth stand where you tried to erase it. He left without another word. People barely met his eyes as he walked the long stretch from that conference room to the elevators. All that swagger drained off him like melted snow. It's just a mug, he'd said, but it never was. It took days for the fallout to settle. His email account shut down by that Friday. Word trickled out he'd resigned under sudden circumstances. No one celebrated. No one mourned. I reclaimed my space. People stopped treating me like office wallpaper. Invitations returned. Respect in its quiet forms, a nod in the hall, a hallway chat about collaboration crawled back slowly. But it came. One afternoon, as sunlight pooled across my desk and the warm scent of cinnamon tea curled into the air, Bate from marketing popped her head over the divider. Hey, she said gently. You okay? I paused. I had done something cold, but not cruel, necessary, but still. Heavy I will be, I said. She nodded, understanding more than she let on. That night I stayed late, cleared my inbox, let the silence of the office wrap around me like dusk. The mug, bright blue, a volcano wrapped in red and gold, sat beside my keyboard. I picked it up, ran my fingers along the rim. Smooth now, no trace of sardonic revenge, just history and me. I pressed it to my lips and drank slowly, letting the warmth bloom inside my chest. Not victory, closure. And as I packed up to leave, I passed the break room. A stack of fresh paper cups sat by the water dispenser, unclaimed, unloved, disposable. I dropped one into the trash without a word. Some things, like dignity, don't come in bulk, and some things, like mugs or truth, don't belong to those who won't respect them. When I walked out into the freezing night, the stars above the Rockies burned low and steady, like quiet witnesses to long-earned peace. I walked home, hands warm, heart warmer. Let him drink alone forever.